It's all good. I came upstairs. I was downstairs with my son. He's watching Chico Bum Bum on Netflix. And then I was like, oh, I should get upstairs and get ready. And I got up and I had an email saying, oh, Dan is in the room.
He's ready. Yeah, he's in the waiting room.
Dan's there. Oh, God. He's ahead of me.
Oh, man.
Now I'm the schmuck. I'm the guy that's late.
No, and then, I mean, I was 3:01 maybe, so.
It's if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late. Isn't that what Joe says? Which is a lot shorter than the version I learned. Is to be early is on time, to be on time is late, and to be late is unacceptable.
Yeah, I heard it's something like that. I think it was like 15 minutes is on time is late, and you don't want to know what happens if you're late.
Well, then.
They didn't even give an explanation to if you're late. It's just, you better hope you're not late.
That's just a threat, man.
I mean, it works. It works. It gets me there. It gets me there on time. So
right. I mean, true. So thank you, Dan, for coming in. I'm like, thanks for coming in today into your own room. It's like all this, I'm like, so going into this, I'm thinking to myself, you have literally been doing this right now for like the last 6 months. You've been sitting down with people and doing these Zoom things. Have you been using Zoom for all of them?
Yes. It's just the easiest. It's the easiest one to do because the way you can set it up, and if you wanted to record a 2-screen or a 1-screen, it kind of gives you that option. And then the recording's simple. It converts it. It does everything for you.
Right.
So I've just kind of been rolling with Zoom since I started doing everything with interviews and stuff like that.
And now I really wish we had all bought stock in Zoom back in March, because we would have more money now.
Significantly more.
It's like it went up 400%.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like, it's not that I didn't think about it back then, because I did think about it, but just so much stuff was happening that the last thing I was thinking about was like, oh, let me go invest in my stock portfolio right now while I'm taking care of 2 little kids, trying to teach online classes, teach my kids kindergarten class, and, just not go insane.
Yeah. I just can't believe that this situation like perfectly lined up for Skype to like jump in, and they blew it. Like they had a 15-year lead on Zoom, and they still ended up being second place at all of this.
Well, it's all those companies that have been around. It's the Avids of the world, the Skypes of the world. They've and even Cisco with WebEx. They've been around for so long, and they're just like, well, we're here. Everyone uses us, so we don't need to do anything different because everyone just uses us. And then you have Zoom come along, and Zoom's been around for like 5 years or so. It's not like Zoom's brand new. Zoom's been around for actually it's almost 10 years, I think. They've been just kind of under the radar, but to do what they did, they just basically innovated the heck out of their software. And so when this happened, they're like, well, look at this. And it was so easy basically they created something that was easy to use for everybody, and it worked everywhere. And that's what you have to do. Like, hey, there's these old guys that have been here forever, but Skype, Skype is hard, but it's not as like Zoom. All the newer softwares I always find are like, they're just easier to use because they start with a fresh outlook on how to use it.
Yeah. Well, I mean that like, whenever I use Skype, it was always just so difficult because there's like a username or a phone number that you needed, and there was no like username, or even like Zoom does with, you have your own unique link where you just give it to them and they can join your room. It's easy. You just send them the link, and then
they don't even have to have an account. They can just sign up.
No, yeah. I mean, and I think that's probably what sold it the most, is you had these professors and people who were on the older side who weren't as technologically skilled. So this comes along, and all they're reading is you don't even need an account. Sometimes you just need the link to a room, and you can put stuff together. That sells, especially with the older population. With the younger population, not so much. I probably could have used Skype or WebEx. I could have used all of them probably, but Zoom was just the most convenient.
Please don't use WebEx. It's horrible.
I mean, it never crossed my mind. I'm saying it probably is possible, but it never crossed my mind.
No, it's totally possible. It's just, one thing about Zoom, like, back in March, May or April, when all this first started, and we were talking about things, and I was just looking at different resources because people were asking me, how are we going to do these things now? How are we going to do what we're doing now? We're talking with other departments working collaboratively on oral history project, things like that. Well, what do you do? I'm like, and I'm looking at the settings of Zoom. I'm like, oh, you can record individual audio tracks. What? How great is that? I mean, every podcast and radio show I listen to, they're using Zoom because they can
Yeah.
do that. They
Yeah.
can.
It's so easy. I mean, like for the interview series I did over the summer, it was simple. I did it. I didn't do the gallery view. I just kind of did the two shot, recorded it, so it was perfectly set up. So when I edited it, it didn't take long to do. And then for a podcast I'm doing right now for my senior project, I do it on Zoom, and when it converts, it gives you the MP4, the MP3. I
Mhm.
can just pop that MP3 in Audition, and it's just as easy. So
Right.
Zoom's definitely, they ran away with it, and that was obvious in even like April, May, when
Right.
we had to really start getting adjusted to it.
So, I mean, the class that you chose not to take this semester, the podcasting class, but this is what I've told people, in the past, it was always, okay, this is how I hate that there's two things that are called the same thing because our Zoom audio recorders, different company, completely different. I used to show them how people use that, plug microphones in, this and that. Now I'm like, okay, download this app on your phone and do your spot, your nat sounds and stuff like with your voiceovers with that, and then do all your interviews over Zoom because it's easy and it's there and it's powerful. And if it's good enough for in this time for National Public Radio and other things to use Zoom, it's good enough for our class.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I'm taking the pulse this semester too, and it's the same thing. And it's funny, I had said this point literally yesterday, when we were critiquing of the first show that we did, and obviously everybody's interviews for the most part are over Zoom or stuff like that. I know for my story, it was over Zoom, and I had done a story on how social justice movements came into sports, and like the different kind of movements that different leagues did, and even going into college sports and all that. So I was talking to Professor Alacastro, and we were kind of going over, what you learned, I guess, over the process of putting together the first show. And I'd said, when I did this story, I got Jessica Minetti and Mark Nofri to get quotes from them in the span of maybe about half an hour. Like that never happens anymore or previously before COVID, you wouldn't be able to get one quote and then pack it up and go to another one because everyone's schedule is so busy. There's
Mm-hmm.
practices, there's recruitment, there's all that. I email both of them. They're both like, how's 4 work? How's 4:30 work? Boom, boom. Before I eat dinner, I got all my quotes. So the process of storytelling, I think, is so much easier too, given the times, because everybody is so much more accessible via Zoom or FaceTime or however you want to record it. It just, everybody's has more time. It's great if you're trying to do storytelling because you can really, you can call them once, and if you want more, you can call them back again at a different time, and
Mm-hmm.
you can set things up like that. But yeah, that's certainly something that I've noticed as I've done more interviews and getting quotes from people over Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, just the amount of work and like obviously don't have time to watch everything, but I just see like on Twitter, like it feels like almost every couple days you have another story up there or another interview that you've done with somebody, and you got your picture and you got your picture side by side with your background and everything. And I'm just like, exactly. In previous times when you'd have to, you get a camera kit, get a light kit, run it out there, do a setup, just the setup alone takes time, as you know, and then doing it and having space to do it and all these things. And now that we're doing everything on Zoom right now, you're right. It's totally I think it's wonderful. It's like the silver lining of things. I think it's a revolutionary where it's like, okay, we don't need to always do this. Everything is not, okay, I'm gonna have to pause for a second because my wife is calling me.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to edit this part out.
Yeah. Good.
Hello. How are you? Oh yes, 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 yes. Um, 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 I'm on a call with a student right now. I just wasn't sure if it was important, so I figured I'd answer. Okay. Yep, Graham's home. He's downstairs watching Chico Bum Bum right now. Okay. Love you. Bye. I should just make a note of myself. That was at 14 minutes.
There you go.
Time code. Yeah.
We love logging time codes.
So here's our pickup. Okay, coming back in. That's when we dropped the advertising spot on Anchor. You know what's funny is now, oh crap, now Jim's calling me. Okay, this is a real pause.
Okay.
Hey, Jim. So at first, I felt my wrist vibrating. I thought sometimes my Fitbit like rings after the phone rings.
Mm,
I thought that's what it was, and I saw Jim. I was like, oh, I should probably answer that.
yeah, that's kind of a big one.
Okay, so we're coming back in at 18. Man,
Too many time codes.
14 to 18. That's it's a solid 4 minutes of cut. It's all good. I'll close that reminder on my computer. Okay. So yeah, no, I think Zoom. I don't even know where we left off now. I got totally sidetracked by the phone call.
We were talking about
How unprofessional. How unprofessional.
No, we were talking about how set up. Usually when
It takes so long to set ups, and not everything justifies that. If you just want a quick thing if you want just that, like you do the quick soundbite from the coach, I was just on Twitter and I saw that you posted about the NEC's update for the season. Maybe you want a quick comment from coach about that. Like that doesn't justify you going down there with a camera kit and light kit to get like the 30-second remark from him. But if you could pop on Zoom for a hot minute and get it, that's all you need.
Yeah, and I know, especially with the story that I talked about for the Pulse, when I had got Mark Nofri, I was emailing him and trying to set something up, and I knew I wasn't going to take much of his time. I think I asked him two questions, and I just kind of knew the way that he answers questions, he would cover everything that I need. So we were kind of sorting out times, and I was busy in the morning, and he had to leave right after practice. So I was like, give me 2 minutes after you come in from practice, and I won't take any more of your time. So he comes in, boom, boom. I think the recording was like 2.5 minutes, but I got everything I needed, and I got the 30-second soundbite that I needed, which goes back to that accessibility. I'm not going to be able to do that if I have to go set up a camera and make sure the audio is right and all that, because that just takes up too much time. So I think this time has also showed that in media in general, that there's so much more efficient ways to do this now. I think Zoom has been a huge part of it, and there's other ones as well that have shown that, as someone who covers sports, I don't need to go travel to a game. I can watch it online, do the press conference on Zoom, and it gets the same effect.
Right. I mean, well, realistically speaking, if you go back to it's like pre-pandemic. What is that? That's PP. That's horrible abbreviation. And PP time.
You could pass with BC, but I mean, obviously it's kind of
Before
already in
COVID,
use.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of already in use. So
Before COVID, and some sports are already being covered in that way in some fashion. Because like, if you talk about like the WNBA, for example, they don't always send the full control room or the full anchors to a game. They have camera ops there, but the anchors and the control room are all remote. And that way you save money on travel. Plus you can have an entire control room do multiple games in a day, where they can remote into one game, and then they flip over, remote into another game, and they do another one with the same director, same TD, and all that. So those guys are great because then they don't have to travel. But and it does save production cost, and that's where technology is going. It's going to that remote control room setup where we can, and we're even working on that with athletic facilities where. Yeah, we built a control room there, and we were talking about originally connecting it to Martiri and stuff like that. And some kind of connectivity might still happen in the future, but the idea of having the athletic control room and then having cameras up at the softball field or somewhere else, and then just be able to hit a switch essentially, and then now you're connected to a different location, so you don't have to move all this stuff, because that, as you know, stuff is expensive.
Oh
and
yeah.
it's not like we are a TV station where we can buy multiple replay machines and stuff like that. But if we have one set of it that we can connect to multiple locations, that becomes more beneficial, which is kind of what's going to happen with the new hockey arena. We're going to have one control room that can be connected to both the hockey side and the auditorium side. So it's called auditorium. I didn't know that either.
Really? Well, I mean, that's the whole part.
That's what a swimming pool is.
Oh, right.
That's what they call a swimming pool. It's an auditorium.
Well, I mean, the whole point, work smarter, not harder. So if you can save costs on, having broadcasters do it from home. I know for the baseball playoffs, Matt Vasgersian called a 13-inning playoff game in Atlanta, ate a sandwich, and then called the Dodgers and the Brewers in LA. And he did it all from home, and there wasn't a drop off in quality or anything like that. It seemed like they were right there at the ballpark doing the game. So I think we're going to see that in the future. Whenever things do get back to normal, we're going to see that where maybe team specific broadcasters don't travel on the road. They just do it remote. It saves 2 to 3 extra people going to these games and traveling with this team and the costs and all that. And it stems all the way down to, possibly other leagues.
Right. I mean, I look at NESN. NESN had their entire broadcast crew just did it from the NESN studios the entire time, all season long. So, and even in the studio, they were all still, their desks were 6 feet apart. So they were separated in there. But, realistically, when you watch a broadcast of a game, if you ever watch the broadcaster's broadcast, they're really looking at the monitors anyways. They're looking at the monitors to see what's happening. They're not looking at this field, because as you know, you have to broadcast what the viewer's seeing, not what's not happening. So
yeah, and especially in baseball, there's not much action to call. Out of a 3-hour game, you're getting 8 to 10 minutes of actual action.
Yeah, it's all conversation.
Yeah, a lot of it's filler anyway, which you really don't need a monitor for, or you don't need to look out into the crowd and see. So maybe with other sports it would be a little bit different because of the pace of it and everything. But for baseball, since we're talking about it, yeah, I mean, most of the time you are not using your own eyes to look out into the field. It's on the monitor or something. You're looking at a replay, So yeah, that's the times are turning in that way where we're probably going to see a lot of changes in how broadcasts are done. Whenever we do get back to normalcy, some networks may stay with this kind of idea because they figured out how it works. It's cheaper. You're still able to get the same amount of quality out of it. So why not do it?
But here's my question to you though. Being a person that wants to go into this field, how do you feel about it personally? Like, because this is what you've wanted to do. You know, you've looked at how you would have done it. Now everything's changed. How do you see this affecting what you're going to do and how you want to do it?
Well, I mean, in terms of jobs, I know that there are some places where, sideline reporting isn't going to be a thing, and, hosting is going to be a little bit different. So at times it can be, I guess, if you want to take that view, it can be scary and worrisome because it's obviously a very competitive field and an industry that is very cutthroat in terms of, if you're not at your best, we're going to find somebody that is. So it can be a little concerning, but at the same time, the way that I've grown up, especially right now in college and having to do interviews and stuff over Zoom, I feel that I've been able to adapt to it to a point where wherever I do end up landing, it wouldn't throw me off that much if they said, hey, instead of you going to Fenway and doing a host game, you're going to do it from the studio with monitors. I that's kind of how I've been accustomed to doing this over the past couple months, and depending on how long it continues, I'm going to have not only experience with it, but I'll have reels literally from Zoom calls showing how I host and how I interview when, we're not able to be next to each other and interviewing somebody who's right next to me.
Right. Good. That was a great answer.
Thank you.
I
studied before. I studied. I have all my notes on my wall.
I didn't give you the questions beforehand.
You don't do those fake like interviews, like, oh, what you think, come on.
I do have
Plus
I have questions to end with. I have I've created the 5 questions that I'm going to ask everybody.
Awesome. It's a universal one. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be universal. Like we just start off talking random. If you couldn't tell, we don't start off with the direction. We just go.
That's the best way to do it sometimes.
Well, that's I feel like when you're trying to get to just really know about people, that's kind of the best way. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're a politician. I'm trying to find out what your view is on XYZ because I don't care. And we're not talking about politics today. I just
No, I'm fine with that. I'm certainly fine with that. But no, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I know for me, as I've continued to do interviews and be on camera more, I think trying to be more natural is something that is such a thing that I need to work on. And luckily that is something that you work on. There are some people that it's especially with TV, it's either you have it or you don't. And right. I like to think I have it. It's just a work in progress where there are little things that I have to touch up. And some of that is just being a little more comfortable, a little more natural on camera, and just being personable, which I think is something that is another thing that you can fix. And that comes with more repetitions on camera. And Sacred Heart has a lot of those opportunities for me. So I can be in a position out of college where I can come out and be fairly comfortable on camera. So wherever I end up landing, it's not like I'm starting from square one.
Right. I mean, and you hit the nail on the head right there. It's about repetition, because practice makes perfect. And literally that's what it is. And being comfortable as a talent and realistically, there's a difference between, when you're a sideline reporter or whatever, you only have moments. You don't even have minutes. You have moments where you speak. And like sideline reporting versus post-game analysis versus long-form interview are obviously, those are 3 completely different things where, sideline reporting, it's like, okay, I got to get in, get out with the information. I get in, I give the information, I get out. That's all you have time for, because you don't know if you're going to get cut off. They're probably going to cut back to the play while you're still talking, especially in football. You start with the sideline report, you're on screen for the first 10 seconds and then they cut away because the ball was snapped. And that's the priority to get that. And then you're still talking over it and you're trying to get that information. And the audience, honestly, if there's a play, they've lost interest in you.
Yeah. And even with that, whether it's sideline reporting, hosting, interviewing, each one of them have their own little sense of pressure. With sideline reporting, like you said, it's getting it out with the information. So you got to have your stuff ready to go. So the minute they go to you, you're ready to run with it. Hosting, you got to stretch it out, and you got to be, able to adapt to things, because you and I both know that in television and for shows, things get moved around and cut, and you have to just kind of adjust on the fly and take that rundown, sometimes completely rip it up and throw it away and just kind of go with the flow. So they're, they're so different, but they have the same responsibilities in a way of, I have to do a certain job within that, whether it's short-lived, long-lived, whatever, where you have to do it. And like I said, if you can't do it, they're going to find somebody else to do it. So there's a lot of pressure that comes with it, but I think it's something that I really like doing. Hopefully I thrive on it. And like I said, I hopefully get better the more I do it. And, I've had a lot of great people that tell me when I look good and do well, and tell me when I don't do so well.
And tell you when to wear a tie.
That is one of them. That is one of them. And, but it's people like that tell me that stuff that I don't necessarily see. And then I change it and I see the difference, and I'm like, oh yeah, they probably were right. I probably should have worn a tie during that one. So, but it's people like that have allowed me to grow since I've been at Sacred Heart.
Well, and that's what our program prides ourselves on, I think, is giving that information, giving that feedback, because we do want every one of our students to succeed in whatever they want to do. And as you've experienced it, we are a hands-on program. There's no theory here. This is practical. I mean, there is theory, obviously, but we want to be as practical as possible and give everyone as much opportunity to get out there and do stuff and be able to shine, really, as an individual. And you're right, we have all the resources, so why not let you do it? You want to come do a stand up in front of the monitor in the studio? Sure, go ahead, do it. Especially if you know how to turn the stuff on, do it by yourself.
Oh yeah, if you can get in the studio to do it, that's great. But if you know how to record to the server, that's where the real brownie points come in.
There you go. Yeah, sure, you can turn the lights on, but do you know how to hit the record button and name it properly, then get it off the server afterwards? So let's see. I had a thought. This is what happens to me. I have thoughts. Oh, and now see, Jim is texting me on the side over here. This is the problem with being at my computer and seeing things. And oh, yeah, Jim hasn't been in the office in obviously we've all been working remotely here and there. Mm-hmm. And I was just saying yesterday, I'm like, I haven't seen Jim in person in I don't know how many months. So he just texted me a picture because I think Al Castro got rid of his second monitor because he got the new computer and he couldn't hook up to it anymore. So it's just been sitting outside my office, on the floor. And so Jim's like, leave out ? I'm like, yeah, because it's a 10-year-old monitor. It's a piece of crap. That's, as technology goes, it is no longer valuable. And if someone takes it, I've been hoping it would just disappear. Honestly, I just don't feel like bringing it to IT to dispose of, yada yada yada, or store it somewhere, because I'm like, it works, but it's very low resolution, relatively speaking. Oh, and now he's texting me another picture. Oh. He's just like, why is he texting me pictures? That is a big box of something.
But yeah, I have him for class, and he's like, I'm teaching in my garage. I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, he put a green screen up behind him and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and his wife is also teaching remotely, so.
Yeah, he was like, I got kicked to the garage. And we're like, okay. We're like, all right.
I am currently, as you can see by this virtual set, I'm at our studios right now.
You are, yeah. You're right there. It looks good. It looks, the wires are cleaned up. It looks good.
Although there's that one wire in front of the monitor that always bothers me about this picture. I'm like, I wish someone could have tucked that in. No, I'm actually temporarily set up in my bedroom. So.
Okay.
Which is why I use virtual backgrounds.
Oh yeah, I probably should find a way to invest, because right now I have a decent amount of lighting around me. That I've kind of, one of the things I was like, man, my lighting for these things has to get better. The ceiling doesn't do it. So luckily with the Pulse, they have their own set of gear that you could take out, and it's better because not a lot of people take it out, because frankly the people in the class don't really know about it. And so I went to Matt Krecky. I was like, hey, can I take out a lighting kit or something? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, just out of habit, I was like, I can get it back to you like pretty quickly. Like I just wanted to test some things out. Like I've been kind of makeshifting ways where I can light it to a point where it looks good and all that. And he's like, we have two sets and both of these lighting sets have not been out at the same time, so you're fine. And I'm just like, okay.
And right now, no one's really taking them out because
Well, that's another thing. Yeah, now nobody's really using it to set up interviews in person. So there's not too much of a wait that I can kind of experiment. Because right now I'm trying to like turn my room into some sort of like a mini on-camera studio thing. Because
right.
anything I do for basketball and football is going to be in my room. So
Yep.
I want to make sure it's not bad quality and looks bad and sounds bad. Hopefully I'll probably end up investing in some sort of like lav, some sort of lav that I could connect to a phone or something like that. I have a microphone. No, I have one of those, but I was
Okay.
thinking possibly like a lav that like connects to your phone,
Right.
like that you can plug in. Just because I think anything that I shoot is going to be on my phone, which
Okay.
it's almost as good quality as
Honestly, the video is these days. The video quality is amazing on the phones.
Yeah. So that's why I've been trying to like see how if I can make a personal studio in a sense. And I have like I could use my iPad. I found out that you can use like Pages as a teleprompter.
Oh, nice. That's new.
So there's a bunch. I've already like the gears in my head have been turning for like a couple weeks now where I'm like, how can I do this? And I need lighting, I need better audio, like all that kind of stuff. So I'm sort of like piece by piece, I'm like putting it together.
You need a mount for your phone for the tripod.
Oh, I already have one.
Oh, well, there you got that. So there you go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, there are definitely lav mics for the iPhone. They're around $100, I would say.
Oh,
I mean,
those are
there's less expensive, but the thing is because the iPhone has it's not just a microphone jack anymore
mhm.
because it's got the special jack. Like, and the good ones are like, they're not cheap, but they're not expensive.
Yeah.
It's in that middle ground.
I have to figure it out. I still have to kind of invest. Luckily, I mean, I guess luckily and unfortunately at the same time, we don't have sports here for at least another couple months. So
You got time now.
yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this: this month of September has been very strange. It just because usually when I get to the weekends, like Saturday, Sunday, it's usually Friday, Saturday. There's some football game around here or Sacred Heart's playing somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm occupied with that. And then Sunday's more production of the newspaper. Or now it's like Saturday I get up, I'm like, I have nothing to do. Like there's nothing to do. There's no interviews I could do because nothing's gone on. There's no games, at least specific to Sacred Heart, that I can invest my time into. So it's been certainly very weird to kind of go throughout the first couple weeks, but
you can come up and watch a soccer team practice at the field because they've been practicing.
I know I've seen them practice. I know rugby I know has been practicing. But now that there's a countdown for basketball, that's certainly optimistic. And then, there's probably going to be some kind of football in the spring. So it won't be a complete lost cause. It's just all goes back to that adapting. You got to just work around it and things will work out.
Well, speaking of basketball, because I'm sure you have some thoughts about this, because we're talking about the season's not going to start till the end of February, and Sacred Heart as a university, once we go home for Thanksgiving break, no one's coming back for classes anyways. So there's a couple different scenarios that could work out for basketball within our conference. What do you think? What's your opinion of what you think might happen? What it might look like?
So it's very interesting. Obviously, the whole situation with it beginning in November, end of November, is the start date that the NCAA determined, November 25th, which is crazy because, we go home. I believe the last day of classes at Sacred Heart is the 24th. So from there, it's just going to be very fluid. That's kind of the best way to describe it because like I've talked with Anthony Latina and Jess Minetti, and they, on the men's side, their non-conference schedule is all set right now. They have games scheduled with non-conference teams. All they're waiting on is what the Northeast Conference decides and when they're going to start their games, because depending how early or late they started them, they may have to switch some things around. But I mean, at least for Sacred Heart, the first 2 months of the season, nobody's here. So I think it's a perfect opportunity to be able to get a lot of games in. The required testing that the NCAA mandated with 3 tests a week, it's good. I think it's good enough to get something on the court to play. It's just a matter of containing any outbreaks, like we're seeing it with the NFL. If there's outbreaks within a single team, you obviously don't hope for any outbreaks, but if you do, you kind of you hope it's within one team and it doesn't break out to, well, Sacred Heart players have COVID and they just played, Holy Cross, and Holy Cross played UMass. So now it's stretching across 3 different teams in 3 different areas. And that's when the craziness really gets into effect. But with the 3 tests a week, I'm optimistic that you're going to be able to catch these early, these cases, if any come up, which obviously I think they will come up in some form. But I'm excited for it. I think ever since things kind of got ripped away in March, people have been looking forward to that day that we will have college basketball. Because for me personally, I didn't think we were going to have college basketball as early as November. I thought we were going to have to wait till January and maybe even later. So it's encouraging to me. I'm just hoping that we can get to that November 25th day with no hiccups or anything drastic where they'll have to push it back or delay or anything like that. But they're doing all the right steps. They're taking all the precautions necessary to make sure that they play on the 25th. So for me, it's just kind of crossing off every day on the calendar. We're one day closer. We're one day closer. We're one day closer to getting to it. So I'm excited for it, though.
I knew you'd be excited because
You
you're
know
bored,
me. I
you're
live
bored
and
on
breathe.
Saturdays. I know you live and breathe
I live and
sports.
breathe that stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I just my take on it. I'm looking at it and saying, one going back to March. My heart goes out to the girls' team. They were on the road. They were in the playoffs, especially the seniors, because that's never going to happen again. That was their last. Senior college athletes, unless they're the very few that end up in professional sports, that's your last time at that competitive level. And to have that just taken away from you like that it's heartbreaking. I mean, it's understandable why it happened, obviously, but I feel for those girls that are never going to have that opportunity again to compete at that level, especially in the playoffs. I've had conversations earlier about, like, for basketball anyways, within our conference, if they did like bubble weekends, almost like, hey, we're just going to do a round robin over the weekend at this location. So that way you have like 4 teams are all here and we're all bubbled now. Let's play together for 3 or 4 days. And then because the one outselling force is, like, Connecticut's rules. So if we have non-conference, even conference games that are from states that are on the Connecticut's naughty list, we can't be traveling there and they can't be traveling here because now we're in violation of state orders. And that's a whole nother thing that unfortunately we have to think about these days. Which definitely would have made the football season impossible, especially for out of state games. That would just be, because we always play one team from Florida every year. That would never happen.
Yeah. So, what I can say, without spoiling or reporting anything, is that Sacred Hearts, I know I would, as much as I would love to break news on office hours with Professor Z, I don't think I can't do it yet. But
that's okay, because this won't drop for like 2 weeks. So,
well, I can say as of when we're recording this, October 2nd, Sacred Heart's non-conference schedule is very regionalized. With,
okay,
it's mostly New York, New Jersey, Connecticut.
That makes sense.
There may be one Massachusetts team off the top of my head, but the biggest thing was, these can be day trips.
Right.
And I know that the men's team is exploring the possibility of doing a multi-team event, which is what you're talking about, where you have 2, 3, or 3 or 4 teams in this one area. You play 2 or 3 games and you go home, and you play it over 2 days, 3 days, however long it takes.
Right.
So that's kind of a driving force with it. Also, financially is another big part of it, because you have to take into account proximity with the regionalized games, and then if you're playing a game, usually Sacred Heart gets a decent amount of money, but the cut that comes with that this year is significant. So financially, you had to start weighing the possibilities of, are we getting enough money to go out and play a particular team?
Right.
And, Sacred Heart has worked that out, but that's obviously such a huge focus. Like, they're not going to be going down to play UCF this year. They're not going to be getting on a plane and going to somewhere, because once a year, the men's team would usually do some like far trip, or they would go to some tournament or do something where there's more of a student athlete experience. Like last year when they went to Florida, they went to Universal, they went to Epcot. They did more things than just play the game down in Florida. So,
Right.
but this year with everything being so different, they want to try and keep things to, 2 hours, 2.5 hours for a bus ride there, play the game, come back, avoid any staying in hotels, anything like that. I
That's
know
smart.
the women's team is still figuring things out with that, because they were going to look to play some teams in the Patriot League, and the Patriot League said yesterday that they weren't going to do any non-conference games. So, things can change in a blink of an eye like that, and you think you have
Right.
a schedule all laid out, which is why I can't say anything. I know who Sacred Heart is planning to play now, but that could be completely different from what it looks like when we actually start the season.
Yeah. At this point, when it comes to sports, especially at the college level, until it happens, I'm not going to believe anything, because it's just like playing class week to week right now. 1 week I'm in the classroom, 1 week I'm on Zoom, because based on who's in quarantine and what we're doing that week is whether or not we should be in class or just on the computer, based on what's happening day to day. And with sports, you have a lot more moving parts with that, so it's until it happens, I'm not going to believe a thing, because it's probably going to keep changing as we go along. So we'll see what happens. I mean, you can't, we don't have the resources that the NFL does that could put a contact tracer on everyone's wrist and test every single person every single day in every organization. We don't have those resources. It's just not going to happen at our college level. We're not the Big Ten or Pac-10, whatever. We're not the big college football schools that rely on that income. And I actually said early on in all this too, like, I'm actually grateful to be at a university that's not reliant on the income of their sports. Like, sports is a nice thing that we have. It's great opportunities that we give our students, and it's a fun thing to have. But if we don't have sports, it's not like we're hurting significantly. We're not Notre Dame, where we live in this little town and we basically fund the town during football season because we increased the population by 30,000 people on a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it wouldn't be fun to have that kind of culture, but it's just, as a university, as an educational institution, it's nice not to rely on athletic money to operate.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, like you kind of just going off of all that. I mean, Sacred Heart sports, I mean, to be blunt, we don't get a lot of fans. There's not a whole, like, football this year with the past season was great. They sold out every game. They broke records. It was awesome. But if you're looking at other sports, basketball, they get a decent amount. They got a good crowds last year because they were both pretty successful. But I mean, lacrosse, softball, soccer, you're not getting a lot of people.
No.
So that, like you said, finances aren't funding the university. Maybe football, but the biggest thing with football, and this is what my concern was way back when they had postponed the fall season end of July, early August, was, football makes a lot of money, or a decent amount, where some of that goes back into some of the programs that we have here that don't make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Football plays, last year they played Maine, who was a top 10 team. They got a lot of money for that. That goes back into the fencing, the equestrian, the bowling, that kind of stuff. So my worry was, and it wasn't a big worry, just something that came into my head was, were we going to see cuts of teams? Because that's been such a thing. We've seen that across all of college sports, that some programs are cutting 4 or 5 teams because they have to, because they rely on the football and the basketball. And for a while, it wasn't happening. So that's millions and millions of dollars if you're playing in a Power 5 conference that you were not going to see. And even now, you're going to be making some of that back, but it's not even going to be close to what you would usually make in a regular year.
Right, because they're getting, even though we're going TV, they're getting the TV money, but they're not getting the money from people coming into the stands and the concessions, and even just the towns aren't going to make the money from people buying gas and stopping to get snacks and things like that as
Yeah,
well. You know, so
hotels,
hotels,
restaurants, all that stems down from the fact that you're not going to have, when LSU plays Alabama, you're not going to have LSU fans in Alabama now. You're not going to have them
right?
renting out hotels and going to restaurants while they're there. And that's not a huge part or concern for college sports, but it's a huge concern for these towns that have these, like
Mm-hmm.
you think of, when you hear the University of Alabama, you think football, their football program, and how much is that? So if they weren't playing, I can only imagine the downfall that community would, that right where they play in Tuscaloosa, ooh, English, it would have such an impact on the hotels, the restaurants, all that stuff there, where you would see some businesses possibly going out of business because those 3 months, 4 months are so important to fund them for the entire year.
Right. I completely with you. Agree. Complete with
It stems over to you
English.
too. See,
Thanks.
there we go.
Thanks. You did it. I agree with you completely about all that. And those are the things I think about too. It's like, yeah, it's the trickle down money. There actually is some sort of trickle down economics when you think about it. But it's ancillary businesses that benefit off of this one program in those towns. And that we're just not going to see that this year. Hopefully we get it back sooner than later, but I also don't want to see it rush back just for financials, because I don't want people to be put in danger because we're worried about, money.
Well, that was a huge thing when these big conferences were debating bringing football back. I know at the Big Ten, when they had originally canceled, I believe the initial vote was 11 to 1 or 10-2 in favor of not playing because of concerns. And then within the span of 3 weeks, it was unanimously let's play. And they said, oh, public opinion wasn't a huge factor of it, all that. And everyone was like, we know you're doing it for the finances. Like, if you can find, and I can't blame them in that sense, if you can find a way to safely play and make some of that money back, obviously do it. You want to make some of that money back, but when Notre Dame wasn't, when they didn't have kids on campus, they still wanted to play football.
Mm-hmm.
And that those two, they go there together. You can't not have kids on campus going to classes, but expect these kids who you don't pay and they're technically amateurs risk their health to go make this university money.
Speaking about pay, what's your viewpoint on college athletes being paid?
So it's funny because for one capstone class that I had last fall, we had, my thesis, I guess, if you wanted to call it that. I wrote a 14-page paper on that exact question. So I like to think I've become a little bit more educated on it. Personally, I think there should be some form, some cut for these players. And the biggest thing that I think I ran into, the biggest problem or counter argument was, your Duke's getting the number one basketball player in the country. And a year from then, he's going to be playing in the NBA. So that guy is highly marketable. Someone who goes to Sacred Heart, who only had one Division I offer, is not going to be getting that much marketability. You're not going to see that kind of stuff. So how do you balance that? And I think the biggest thing was, you got to go off of how much you got to look at it's never going to be even across the board. Like, each player gets this amount of money. It all depends on the cash flow that you get within your university. Marketability obviously is a huge thing. And the amount of money that you can get from your image. If you're getting, for example, and I use this one in my paper, at the time, Zion Williamson was the biggest athlete in sports in general. He playing for Duke, he was a great athlete, great player, was going to go to the NBA in a year. ESPN was saying, go check out Duke and Zion Williamson. These shoe companies and all that were like trying to market him because he was so easy. If a 8-year-old kid sees him with these shoes, oh, he's dunking. I want to go get some Nikes now. That's marketability. If you had an EJ Anasicki, who at the time at Sacred Heart, not many people know about Sacred Heart. They don't know about the program. So if you had him wearing Adidas shoes, you're not going to get a lot of people saying, oh, I want to buy Adidas shoes because I saw him in them.
Mm-hmm.
So it all depends on what the marketability is where you are. I know the biggest thing for me that I said was the university should somehow partner with the athletes to allow outside events like signings and little things where they can make money based off of that, because it's not going to be equal for every athlete. And it goes back to, it's not going to be equal. Not everyone's going to get a participation trophy. Not everyone's going to get paid, but that's just how the world is. So it's such an interesting topic, but it's never going to get solved because everybody's going to be looking for, well, what's that equal cut? And that's just never going to happen.
That's when you guys say it's about equity, not equality.
Exactly. I think I want to say I used almost those exact same words a couple times throughout the paper, saying that, not everyone's going to get a participation trophy.
No, well, you're right. It's also, yeah, you're right. If you play for Duke, you people see you on TV. You play for Sacred Heart, you might see it on SNY, but that's about it. And we don't bring in the money that other universities have, so it's not like we're making money on them that we can give them back in the same way. I know California, I think it was just they passed a law that's going to take place in a year or two, because the big one was about like the video games, the NCAA football game. You have people's likenesses and they're not getting any money from that. So
I mean, there was a lawsuit years ago with Ed O'Banion. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but in EA Sports used to make a college basketball game every year. I think it was maybe from 2007 to 2010. And in one of the games, someone who was a college basketball player at UCLA at the time picked up the video game, and they played as UCLA, and this one player had same skin complexion, same number, same accessories, but no name attached to it. So it's just a lucky coincidence that he looks exactly like this player, but since there's no name to it, they can get away with it. So there was a whole lawsuit about it, and ultimately that kind of started picking up steam with this argument of, well, if you're going to make college video games, you got to pay the players. So EA Sports stopped making the college basketball game after 2010. They stopped making the college football one after 2014. But that's a huge thing. And I know as a consumer of those games, I love those games. And I still have those now seemingly outdated games, but now are kind of like those those archives where you go in and you're like, oh, I have the 2010 college basketball game. And it's like a big deal. So in terms of marketability, if that gets passed and they find a way to somehow make video games again for it, it would make a significant amount of money from it. So in terms of paying back the players, I'm sure it could be done, but to spread out their earnings across 352 Division I teams and all their players, that's where the problem comes in.
Well, it is a problem, but I don't know. It can be done for movies, so why not? It's about residuals. It's the same thing. It's basically
I personally, I see from covering Sacred Heart last year, you see Cam Parker have the NCAA Division I record for assists in a game. You could market that. It doesn't matter whether he did it for Duke or Sacred Heart. It was a record. It's a Division I record. You could easily market him. Hey, the player who has the all-time single game assist record is signing autographs at the Trumbull Mall from 2 to 4. You don't think people would go and, a couple of people would go and do that? Like,
right.
There's little things. It may not be a lot, but there's little things that can be done. But it's California tried to start the trend of doing that, and other states are certainly going to do the same eventually. It's just, it seemed like it was picking up a lot of steam, and then things kind of went away from it, and then COVID came, so it kind of got put on the back burner, and
as most things have.
But yeah, but it's gonna be something. I think it's an argument that we're gonna keep seeing as the years go on. Certainly in the 2020s, we're gonna see a lot of traction toward it, I think.
I agree. I mean, well, in California has always been the state that they enact a law, then other states follow. aside from sports, it's with the car emissions, things like that. They'll enact an emission standards, and because it's kind of thing that if they enact an emission standards for cars, it's not like Nissan's going to make a car just for California.
Mhm.
Or but they have to do. It's going to be everyone's going to get the effect from the one state having the law. So the one state has the law. It's not the rest of the country doesn't have to pass the law, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to be being done in the rest of the country. Because if California does it, everyone else has to do it. It's kind of that becomes equality.
Well, and
Or equity. I
and
don't
that's another part of it, though. California passes this law. Okay, so athletes who play in the state of California can get paid. Does that not sway you a little bit more if you're a college athlete? Hey, come play for, come play for UConn or go play for USC, where whether you're the best, you can make. There is the potential. There is the potential to make money. Not saying you will make money, but there is the potential to do it. That alone could possibly sway somebody, and I think that's what's going to make a lot of states start passing that sort of law, because there's going to be an athlete that is going to explicitly say, well, I was choosing between this school and that school, but I want to try and get paid, so I went out to California. And then from there, that's going to open up a whole thing about
and they're going to be that new high school star that's rising up that everyone already knows about. And then they're going to be the top pick, and they're going to be choosing between, like you said, the East Coast team or the West Coast team. And they're going to end up going to California because, they make that statement. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, well, now we got to, UConn's got to get their act together. So-and-so, everyone else has to get their act together to fall in line and make it more equal across the board, or else you're going to lose students. Again, Sacred Heart's on a different level because we're not going to get those top, we're not the big top sports team. We're not going to get the big top sports people all the time. And that's just where we are. We're like the AAA of Division I.
It's fair. It's fair to say, but I think the biggest thing is, these high school kids nowadays, you can, these kids come into college as superstars,
Right.
Zion, going back to Zion Williamson, he was first recognized as this super talent when he was a sophomore in high school doing these extreme dunks. He comes into Duke, and his personal Instagram account has more followers than the Duke team basketball account. The Duke basketball account had, I think it was 900,000 followers at the time. Zion Williamson had 1.7 million. So these people aren't just athletes, all they are now icons in society, especially in the sports aspect of
they're a brand.
Yeah, they come in with their own brand, and that's the thing. And they sway decisions and how college sports is going to turn. For example, kind of going outside of the money thing, based on the social movements that have been going on, some of the top college athletes have decided to go to HBCU schools, which was something that wasn't a thing until all these events happening, and these kids who have these platforms based on social media are bringing awareness to it, it ties hand in hand with these athletes who are 18, 19 years old, who are superstars, can make such a huge change in society, whether it's getting paid, bringing more awareness to social justice or HBCU schools. It's a huge thing, and it's all fueled by social media.
Man, so crazy.
It is. It's crazy, but it's cool to see, how it unravels. You go back 10 years, this isn't happening. You're not getting these high school superstars because not everybody's recording every game and posting that crazy highlight that they had and giving these kids that platform.
Right.
Now you see that it's such a common thing for,
I got Instagram, I got TikTok, I got all this stuff, and then they can promote themselves and people find it. You go back to when LeBron was in high school, we just knew about LeBron because everyone was recruiting him, and he had 3 shoe deals before he got out of high school. They gave him a Hummer. It was
It's just and that was, that was 2003. So it's 15,
and you had Adidas, Reebok, and Nike offering him shoe deals, and Nike offered him the most, and he went with Nike.
Yeah, and
Adidas was the least, and it was like $60 million.
Yeah. And nowadays you're getting kids who are not even drafted in the NBA yet, who before they even start their careers, they have these $100 million shoe contracts because it's these people are their own brand. And if you're seen wearing a brand, it sways people. It really, like, there are some people who will only wear a particular brand because their favorite player is. And that's just the power of social media now, and these personal brands, and these companies see that, and that's why they're so incentivized to throw this money at them, because they know that the money that they're going to give them, they're going to make triple that from the funds, the income that they get, because this athlete is showcasing their product.
Okay, I feel like we could go down another whole rabbit hole about this, but I'm going to pause that because that'd be a whole nother hour.
It could.
Because I want to get to my 5 questions. I got to come up with a cool name for the 5 questions, like such as the 5 questions. This is my new standard. I just came up with these questions this morning. Just moving my sticky pad over so it's closer to my eyes, so I don't have to like look so far to the right. My mouse is acting weird. It's probably because I'm recording for like too long. I don't know. Okay. Question 1. Have you ever watched Behind the Actors Studio? With James Lipton?
Yes.
Yeah. With the blue cards. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for saying yes. I asked Shannon that and she's like, no.
I've seen maybe like a couple. I haven't seen a lot, but I am familiar with it.
Okay.
It's sorry. I am better than Shannon. We can put that
up. Wow. I am not going to say that to her.
I'm only kidding. No.
I will say I was in the Spectrum office like a week ago, and I was like trying to fix something when I was fixing the drive, and I was like making movie.
I was getting periodic updates about that one.
I was making like movie references, and she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." It's like,
all right. No, she has certainly helped me keep my sanity through the first couple weeks of Spectrum. So I have to give her credit for that.
That's good. Okay, here, question 1. What is something that you wish your professors knew about you?
Oh, man. That's a tough question, because I feel like most of the professors that I have had, they know a lot about me.
Say it's a new professor that you've never had before. What would be something that you want them to know about you to help you have a better class?
I think the understanding of everything that I do outside of class. And I know that I know like you, Professor Alacastro, there's probably others that you guys know what I do outside of class, and it's a lot. It's very demanding. And that you see that what I'm doing is real life work in media, and what you teach is really beneficial and necessary. But I want to know that I want the professor to see that the stuff that I do is also very important to me, because it's the same thing, but in a different atmosphere, if that makes sense.
It does. It's the practical. Like you're actually doing the thing.
Yeah, you're teaching what I have already begun doing. So it is important for me to learn that kind of stuff still, because there are many things that I do not know, and things that I learn in these classes I use in what I actually do. But I also am not starting from square one.
Right. Which is why if you do take podcasting in the spring, I had to figure out how to make it more challenging for you.
No. No. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that.
Because you already know
that's second semester senior year. So
because I'm like, you already know so much of the basic parts of it. I'm just gonna have to
just treat me
don't worry, you'll still be further off.
Just refresh yourself as if I'm that freshman going into your 102 class that doesn't know anything.
Who are you again?
Exactly.
You and Brett don't do the show anymore together.
It's funny. The one memory that I have that for some reason sticks in my head the most from taking your class freshman year was because your class was, I think it was a 9:30. So I was in class on time or whatever, and usually Brett I think we used to walk over together, and for some reason wasn't answering his phone, was probably sleep. I accidentally overslept. So I'm in class or whatever, and we're going through class. You're like, "Oh, where's Brett?" I was like, "I have no idea." And he texts me about 10 minutes later. He's like, "Oh, I overslept. I'm on my way." And he's like, "Tell Keith." And at this time we were 2 months into the semester, so you knew of these shenanigans that me and Brett would do. So I was like, "Oh, Brett slept in." And you're like, "Okay." And he just strolled in and class continued as normal. But for some reason that class just like, it just was a great example of how our relationship is between you, me, and Brett.
Well, I will say, my style when it comes to class, I decided this a while ago. I'm never going to stop a class because someone's late or someone's whatever. Like, if someone's late, they come in, I just going to keep on going. I'll catch them up when I have the time. But for me, there's a couple rules I have within college teaching. If it was high school, elementary school, it'd be a different story. But with college, I'm like, okay, I treat everyone as an adult. You have chosen to go to college. So if you're late, that's on you. If then it's on you to catch up as well. If you're going to choose to be texting on your phone in class, that's on you. I'm not going to stop the class because you're texting, because I don't want to take away from the people that want to be there and are paying attention. So if you are looking down here and you're texting, I'm not, if it's excessive, I might call it out. But I don't like being the professor that calls you out in the middle of a class either. I don't want to call you out for doing something you shouldn't be doing. I'll call you out for not doing your homework for 3 weeks in a row.
Well, that's a different
When we're reviewing stuff,
story.
like, hey, where's your stuff? Why don't I see your stuff here?
It's an actual grade.
That puts a little pressure on you. Because there's also like, everyone has different learning styles. I know me, sometimes I have ADD too. I sometimes, like, I could be in class. I've been in classes where I'm on a computer while someone's teaching whatever, and I can still pay, sometimes it's reviewing something I know. So I'm just doing something else, or I'm already working on the thing that they're talking about. And so I try not to also judge people based on how they physically act in class until I see their work, because it could be a person that's not paying attention at all, or doesn't appear to be paying attention, and then they hand in their work and I'm like, well, this is great. So I'm not going to complain about what you're doing in class day to day, because you're still handing in great work. Or conversely, I could have a person that looks like they're paying attention the entire time, and then their work was like, were you listening? I don't understand what this is.
Yeah, I remember, I tried to be, because your class, I remember, because since I had it in the second semester, I knew people who had taken it first semester, and they had said,
Cheater.
like, hey, they didn't tell me how to do it. They were just like, it's like, you're going to learn a lot about editing and like the different techniques, which I was like, great. Because at that time, the only familiarity I had with any editing was iMovie. So really wasn't, it wasn't much. So I was excited for it. So I would try and pay attention as much as possible. And midterms come around, and it was like, I think you gave me like a B-. And I was like, B-, like, I pay attention, like I do the work, like what could it be? And I'm pretty sure I was like so freaked out about it. I like went to your office and I was like, what do I have to do to like get this grade up? And you were like, just redo, like fix some of the stuff, and then you'll be fine. So I had to like keep redoing, which I think is a great way to teach, especially in a production class where your first draft is not going to be a material, more likely than not. So you have to keep working at it. And especially with editing, there's such an attention to detail where you have to pick up on those little things. And I think even to this day, when I'm editing, kind of plugging myself. So this 2 weeks ago, I started a full-time internship with the Dan Patrick Show. And my main responsibilities have been editing the interviews that they do, making sure things look good, and then help distribute it on social media. So attention to detail is such a huge thing. If I have to cut something, make sure it's cut at the right time, so it's not cutting him off or cutting something off, or something looks bad or looks off. So, and I think that attention to detail came probably from, you and the other production classes that I had, where it's, you would dock points for the slightest thing, which at the time I was like, that's kind of ridiculous. But now that I see it, it made sense.
Thank you. Thank you for your understanding. I mean, and also thank you for reaffirming this, the way I've chosen to grade, because I did think of that years ago. I was like, first of all, it's an intro level class. So I do say from time to time in those classes, I'm like, if you are getting A's all the time, you shouldn't be in this class anyways, because it means you already know all this stuff. Like but so a B is always a good grade, because it means you're learning it, but you're just not professional level yet. And you shouldn't always be professional level. So, but then I had that idea of like, okay, I want to give people the chance to refine, because I want them, I want you to go out and try it. Because, and this just goes, because I have my master's in education as well. So I have my master's for teaching. And I keep up with all the findings and thoughts and different readings of how to teach and things like that. And the idea of like finality of an assignment to me, especially when if your goal is to instill knowledge, then you should not penalize the student for not having the knowledge complete. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah. Yep.
Man, I'm
No,
coming
that
up with
makes
this phrase
sense.
as I say it. So especially with a production class, and like I'm telling you this, especially when we get into photography, like I just downloaded a lot of information into everybody in a class. And then I'm going to ask you to go do something with that information. And some people are going to go out and they're going to do well. Some people are going to be able to process it nice. Some people are going to be okay with it. And some people are going to be like, I took the camera out and I didn't know how to do the XYZ. And that is expected. And I expect that all the time. That's why I bring the cameras in the class, and and more importantly, it's not that I want people to try. I want people to just put like, and I do it to this day. And like, I'll ask a question, and cause I'm like, I want a prop discussion. I want I want people to just try thinking. Like you don't even you don't have to have the right answer. I just want you to try to get an answer
Mm-hmm.
and see if you can even think about where this might be. And so for the like photography, in video stuff, I just want people here's the parameters of where it needs to fall. How you accomplish that and what you choose to do with it is up to you. And you might succeed really great. You might be okay, and you might fall on your face. And all those are acceptable outcomes, because then I give you the chance, okay, this is what you did wrong. Go do it again. And
Yeah.
then, and
It's
that's how you get
important.
better.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like I came in and like academics were so important for me because I obviously just wanted to do well, make sure, shoot for a high GPA, that kind of thing. So with production classes, I kind of thought you do X, Y, and Z and you're going to get an A. And I was right to an extent, but it also took, a couple extra drafts. I remember the one that for some reason, I could not figure out was depth of field. That was the one that I could not do. And I like didn't completely understand it. And I think that was the one that I needed to do at least like 3 takes of,
Yeah.
and re-upload it to the Weebly website that you made us create for all our work. So, but now looking at it, I'm like depth of field, like I could point it out like there was over the summer I took art of the moving image with Professor Wang, and we had a quiz, and one of the things we talked about the different elements when you're shooting, and what each thing is and how it looks on screen. And I remember for the quiz, one of them was like depth of field. Like I didn't even need to go back in my notes. I was like, boom, boom. I know which one is which. I know which one is the deep one, which has the shallow one. That was like hammered in me because it took me like 3 or 4 times in your class to do it. So it certainly stuck once,
Thank
by
you.
doing it over and over again. So,
And that's my goal with the intro class. I just want you to, even if in the class you may not get that assignment right, later on you're going to remember back to that moment and go, oh right, now I know how to do it, even if you didn't get it then. Because again, we, as you know, in intro class there's so many different topics we cover, and I don't expect everyone to be great at all of them either. Like you might be great at the audio part, you might be great at the video part, you might be great at the photo part. You don't have to be great at all of them. Video might be, for some people, video is stronger than photo. For some people, photo is stronger than video, even though conceptually they're kind of the same thing, but practically they are very different.
mhm.
So I expect that, and I look for it, and I'm okay with that. And I just want to encourage. I also know, especially because being in the intro class, it's usually freshman or sophomore that are taking the classes, and they're still coming. You're still coming from high school in an education system that teaches to a test. And I try to break that. Like, we're not teaching to a test here. We're learning to a goal. And I just want people to learn to have an outcome that you're going to be happy with. And not, because people be like, okay, what do I have to do to get an A? I'm like, all I have to do to get an A is do the things that are on the piece of paper. Like that's all it is. Like, these are the shots you need. Do these shots and then do them the right way, and you'll have an A. That's literally the assignment. And if you do that, it's going to be great. If you don't do that, it's not going to be great. End of story. So it's
Yeah,
not hard.
guilty as charged on that one. I was
Yeah,
certainly
well,
one of those
hey,
kids.
it happens. Hey, all right, I got that was one question. Jeez,
I know. I was thinking, oh man,
we're
that
gonna
was a
get through these next ones fast. I promise, because
that's fine.
we're getting long
Rapid
here.
fire.
You
Rapid
know.
fire.
Okay, this is a hard one too. Ready? What is your best memory of your time at SHU?
Yeah, oh my gosh. It's crazy. Since like senior year has started, there have been times where I have been to a fault. I've been extremely nostalgic because you get the memories coming up of moving in and for freshman year, the memories you made and all that. So I feel like I'm more prepared for this one because I am always nostalgic. I honestly think um, just last year in general, covering being a part of this covering Sacred Heart basketball a little more extensively. Obviously, when I came in, like college basketball was the one sport that I had watched for many years, and um, as early as my freshman year, I started covering it. So I really loved doing it, and most college kids who follow college sports, they love their own team. Like they're obviously the biggest fan of their own team. Um, so when I got to cover a lot of games for Sacred Heart last year, I think I covered 18 of their 31 games in person, um, and that included making trips to Providence, Yukon. We went to Hartford when they played Hartford. Like we kind of traveled, and when I say I mean Brett and I. We kind of did a lot last year, and I got to have a lot of great relationships with those guys and make a lot of great memories. I just think all of that. Like I remember the time of being there and how I felt, and the fact that they were so successful last year, and I got to witness a lot of it. It's something I really don't think I will ever forget anytime soon because the relationships I had with the guys on the team, the memories that I made watching them play and winning a conference tournament game at home, like that was like you know, I was like on cloud nine, more so for the fact because I knew how the guys felt about it because I'd been around them all year and I knew how much this meant to them. So probably that. It's not necessarily one memory, but it's just the whole season. I think was something that is, regardless of where I end up, that's going to be something that stays in my head for a very, very long time.
Excellent. What will you miss most when you leave SHU?
Uh,
Besides
the
me.
people. I mean, yes. I mean the people in general, and the willingness to help, which is something I think that made Sacred Heart a very great place when I was even considering coming here, because going into sports media, they're the prestigious schools, they're the Syracuses and the Fordhams, and the schools that have you go there, just the name itself is going to help you beyond after graduation. Whereas Sacred Heart, the program was up and coming, had Martiri, which was new at the time when I was applying. There was opportunity, and so many people since I've been here. I mean, like people in the athletic department from Chris O'Connor, Alex Bousquet, those guys helped me get my first on-air game 3 weeks into my freshman year. The coaches that have been, I'm that pesky kid that keeps asking them questions, week in and week out, and every time they're willing to talk to me and treat me as a professional, which is what I want. So all of that tied together, I think just the people have made my experience so much better than like on paper, it was set to be great, but the people have made it so much better. So that would probably be the thing I will miss the most.
I don't want to say you copied Shannon, but you copied Shannon.
Well, I think it's a
I
very,
think it's a Sacred Heart thing, though. I mean, this has been
it
said multiple
is.
times. Is the people of Sacred Heart that make it different than other universities? But I do want to turn it back on you for a second because you said you call the coaches and things and they answer you. But part of it is you. I mean, you come up in conversation amongst different groups for different projects for a reason because you've always presented yourself as someone you want to do it. You present yourself as a professional. You are knowledgeable about the subject that you're doing, and you're someone that, because of those things, we can say, yes, we're going to trust you, handing you all this equipment and go set it up and do the thing, because of how you presented yourself, it reflects back as well. So thank you.
Well,
Thank you for
thank you.
being here.
I appreciate it. No, I mean, I think when I came in, I wanted different things, and the one thing that people were telling me was, you gotta pay your dues, and you got to do the little things, and you got to create this reputation to be trusted. And then, I think I reaped those benefits the most last year with basketball. If I wanted Anthony Latina on the phone, I could get him, that same day, if not the next day, which would be something I would not have gotten my freshman year.
Right.
I wouldn't, if I didn't pay my dues and do the little things at football games, and, taking pictures and little things that I didn't want to do for a career, but it's led to where I am now, where the athletic department trusted me to do an interview series over the pandemic. Like that alone was something that was helpful to me and helpful to them. That was a result of the things that I did when I was a freshman, sophomore, even junior year.
Agreed. Totally. Okay. 2 more questions. Here we go.
Okay.
What advice can you give to an incoming freshman?
Say yes to everything. And when I say that, I mean,
not the off-campus parties during COVID.
Not necessarily that. More so in terms of in your career. If that was the one thing I learned, was like, just be willing to do, anything and everything. Because that alone for me was like I had said, freshman year, I wasn't gonna come in and do the things that I'm doing now, because people didn't know who I was. They didn't know my reputation. They didn't know if I was reliable. But I did little things. I would show up on time and be early. I would, you need someone to operate a camera, I'll be your guy. I don't want to be a camera operator for my career, but I'll do it because I want to have that reputation. It's funny, if I don't do the work, I had Professor Mario Miranda. I mean, now he's more of a colleague to me than a professor, but I have him sophomore year. I do the work for him, and I kind of, give myself a good reputation as someone who's reliable. I end up doing work at the Dan Patrick Show. Now I'm a full-time intern. So you reap the benefits of it if you are very active and adaptive to a bunch of different things. So saying yes and being available to people in your industry is the biggest piece of advice I could give.
Excellent. Okay, last question. You don't have to have an answer for this one, because it says, if there's one thing you could change about your time at SHU, what would it be and why?
There's definitely I would say there probably would be some stuff. I think just there would be sometimes early, maybe freshman, sophomore year, to be in the moment more. I think early on I was very hard on myself academically, in terms of, I got to get a 4.0 every single year, every semester. And, I got to bury myself in the schoolwork. There were probably some social opportunities that I missed out on, that if I could do it again, I'd probably switch what I decided to do. But that would probably be it. But I mean, I came in really wanting to do well academically. And I have, and obviously I'm proud of that, but there were probably some times where I could have been like, it is a small assignment. I could probably be all right if I spend some time with my friends, or go out to eat, or do something different where, I'll have a little bit more of a stretch to do for work, but, I'll be all right. So.
Well, Dan, before I let you go, do you want to plug anything? Because I know you got Twitter, you got,
Yeah, I mean, my social medias, Twitter and Instagram, I guess, are just at Dan Gardella. I like being interactive with people for social media. You obviously know that. I like just talking about Sacred Heart sports. If you really go on my Twitter, it's pretty much all sports related.
Yes,
mostly Sacred Heart related.
Definitely noticed that.
Yeah, if you didn't guess it already, it's a good indicator. But I mean, hopefully there's going to be a lot of work that I'll be able to do once we get more sports going on. I know I'd actually just posted a a clip about the podcast that I've been doing. See, work never stops.
I, I,
Clock
lit-
24/7.
I literally find out about the NEC information from you before I find out about it from the NEC,
Which
because
is
because you
something
pop
that
up
I
on my Twitter
love.
first, because I don't
Yeah.
follow the NEC, I follow you. So like my phone, and sometimes like it's weird how like the app chooses what to show you on as an alert on your phone sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be like, oh, Dan just tweeted about this. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I found out today about what the NEC's decision because I read your post, even though they announced it yesterday. Or no, they announced it today.
Technically yesterday, but they put
Yesterday.
something out today saying that they reaffirmed the decision. But that's the thing that I like. I like being, it's been more so just junior and senior year. Like I like being that insider for Sacred Heart Sports. I like people who I don't know to have messaged me and told me, I follow you because you do a really great job covering Sacred Heart Sports. And that's something that I take pride in because the relationships I have with a bunch of the coaches in the different sports. And, I want to be as versatile as possible in terms of the sports that I cover. Obviously, basketball is the primary one, but, I've talked with Coach Nofri. I've talked with CJ Maritolo, the head hockey coach. I have those relationships, and it's something that I've had to work for. They weren't as willing to talk to me freshman, sophomore, junior. The first time I talked to Coach Nofri, I was so intimidated. And now he's, I'm on the phone with him whenever, and he's like, you come down, my door's always open if you want to talk. So like, that's what I really take pride in, that because I know the work that I put in freshman, sophomore, junior year has paid off to what the stuff that I put out now, and people benefit from that. And I always appreciate when people reach out to me about that kind of stuff. So I'm always interactive, obviously, as you know. So if that's what you're looking for with Sacred Heart Sports, then I am your guy, I guess you could say.
Okay, last question. Are you going to grad school?
It's up in the air. It's in consideration because the way I've been handling this whole situation is, I want to. Grad school certainly would benefit me a lot. I think more in terms of really tightening up how I am on camera and particular aspects of journalism and reporting. But that being said, the connections that I've made over the years, I think, has set me up in a situation where there could be jobs that I get through connections that could be really great jobs out of college. So it's probably going to be a last minute decision. I will go through the whole application process of grad school and everything. And if the job market isn't where I hope it is, or the jobs that I get offered or that are available don't meet what I am hoping to get, which is a positive. It allows me to be a little pickier with what I want to choose. Then I'll end up going to grad school. So you could be stuck with me for another 2 years, Keith.
Yeah, it could happen. It's okay.
It could happen because I going to grad school for 2 years, staying at Sacred Heart for another 2 years is great, but getting a job is just as great. So so we'll have to see. Ask me again when we get to March, April, and May. Yeah. Ask me at graduation. We'll do a follow-up podcast on at Webster Bank Arena.
Maybe we'll have to have like a seniors edition in April. Like, we'll have like a panel of seniors.
There you go.
You have you, Shannon, some others. We'll just do like a little mini panel. We'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, you could get me and Shannon the day of. The
day of is usually like Mother's Day, so I got other things to do.
It got pushed back.
That's right. It got pushed back. It's not Mother's Day this year, which is
clear your calendars, folks. But it certainly started with the knock jokes back in year 102. So I always wanted to give you your props for that.
Oh, the knock jokes.
They were the corniest things, man.
They are, but they teach a very basic thing. They teach
over the shoulders. I learned over the shoulders from that.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Shot, reverse shot. That's all we're doing. Two shot.
The student has become the master.
Well, slow down.
Not yet. That's where you have to humble me, Keith. That's your opportunity to humble me.
Yeah, I'm being nice. You're my guest right now.
That's fair. That's fair.
Well, Dan, I want to thank you again for joining me here today on here. I keep saying here, like we're not anywhere. We're just in cyberspace, really.
The typical radio talk,
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. Everything goes back to like the generic talk. So, well, again, I want to thank you for joining me today. I'll let you know when I'm going to drop this on the internet webs as it is. And we will do a follow-up podcast with you and Shannon and somebody else in the future and do like a little group session. And I really enjoyed our talk today. Great catching up with you. It's always great to see what you're doing for Sacred Heart Sports, our department. You're really, not to boost your ego too much here, but you're really a good example of what a good media student should look like and should be working towards. I really think that you're ready for the career, and you are going to really have a good resume to put out there when it's time to go find that job. So, good luck to you. Thank you for being here, and have a good semester.
Thank you, Keith. I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate the kind words, even though it will boost my ego a little bit. But that's why you humble me second semester when I take your podcasting class. But no, thank you. I always appreciate you having me on. I'm glad you're restarting the podcast. I think being able to talk to a bunch of different seniors and students within the school is a great idea. And you have a great semester as well. Hopefully, we'll run into each other, at some point within the school.
Yeah, I'm only there 2.5 days a week, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah, I think I'm only there 2 days a week, so it's you don't really cross paths with the same people that you usually do. But it certainly was good catching up with you for an hour and a half today.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll see you later.
See you,
Keith. It's hard to sign off on this thing.
I know. It's weird because like when I do the interview series, like sometimes I'll like record it and I'll be like, thanks for your time. And then I'll stop the record. Like it'll be one of two things. I'll be like, oh, thanks for joining me. Best of luck, whatever. Sometimes they'll just leave the Zoom before I can really like thank them like off camera to be like, oh, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Like, have a good day. Like they'll just head off. Other times they'll like stick around and I could be like, oh, thanks for taking time. And like, sometimes we'll chat a little after the fact. But there's really no like, once you like sign off of a recording, like, do you just leave right there or do you hang around and like let them thank? Like, well, you don't really know what to do,
Zoom has presented a whole new thing, and I've heard it done different ways on different podcasts, and I don't stop recording until I'm done because you can always edit.
That's fair. That is fair.
But I should go anyways because my son has been watching Netflix for 2 hours now, and we need to stop that.
I think I'm gonna go watch Netflix for 2 hours myself. To be honest.
Well, aren't you? Like I want
to. That's how my Fridays go, Keith. No sports. Can't really go out anywhere. So I'm gonna be curling up with probably some popcorn. Maybe a nice beer. Now that I am the big 2-1.
Oh man.
No stopping me, Keith. No stopping me.
Okay, last question. What's your beverage of choice for beer then?
As somebody who is not very experienced with it, and that is the truth. I just go like typical like Bud Light. Like I'm kind of like a simple kind of guy. I haven't really dabbled in the different tastes and stuff yet. That's something that once I can go out in public and not risk my health to a point, then I can start becoming a little bit more versed in the beer world. But I certainly have. I know my housemates certainly have some stuff here where I can kind of try some different things. So
I will say this time of year, it's Shipyard has a Pumpkinhead ale, which I enjoy. Sam Adams came out with a pumpkin spice beer this year, which is really good. I like the pumpkin spice. Call me basic. I don't care.
No, it's the time of the year. Everybody gets a pass for it.
Two Roads has Rosemary's Baby, which is really good. And Sam Adams Oktoberfest is always a go-to. So
I'm also a big seltzer guy. I like for some reason. I can't have like regular seltzer, but like the spiked seltzer, whatever.
I've heard that.
Like, for some reason.
Like regular seltzer, no. Spiked is good. I don't know. I haven't had them at all yet. So,
I mean, like, yeah.
Although there's some in my fridge. I just haven't tried it.
The White Claws are kind of like the popular one with
I'm not
college
doing that.
Kids and stuff.
I just can't do that out of principle.
I guess if you want to call me basic for that, then I'll wear that one like a badge of honor. So yeah. We'll see, though.
We'll go be basic and go watch your Netflix.
I will, Keith. Thanks again
All
for
right.
having me. I appreciate the time.
All right. We will see each other soon. I promise.
Absolutely. All right.
All right.
Take care, Keith.
Bye.